In any war, the key to victory is mobility. The victors are the ones who can move. In 1984, a new era in military transportation was heralded by the U.S. Army's high-mobility, multi-purpose vehicle, better known as the Humvee. But this big rig is really the end of the story, a story that begins with a vehicle that captured hearts around the world and caused an even bigger stir in its day, the Jeep. By the end of World War II, nearly every guy in America knew about the Jeep and knew he wanted one.
It just became an overnight sensation and a legend. Every one of these GIs that came in as a young kid in the Army, 17, 18 years old, an entire generation said, "Look at this thing, I just love it."
Perhaps the most American of all vehicles, this is the story about the evolution of the Jeep. Now, big rigs of combat, Jeeps on Modern Marvels. This odd machine transformed the very nature of war by replacing the cornerstone of ancient warfare, the horse.
For 4,000 years of recorded history, the horse was the primary vehicle that the Army used to carry equipment, transport troops. It was good off-road terrain vehicle. It was the fastest thing alive at that point for warfare. So it performed splendidly for 4,000 years.
But horses required grooming, exercise, nourishment, and training. And like the soldiers they served, horses were often casualties of war. In World War I, a dark innovation in combat would revolutionize mobility. Mechanized warfare. The bloody battlegrounds of the Great War were the proving grounds for dozens of new machines. From the Ford Model T to the Mark I tank. When 19th century strategy confronted these 20th century weapons, the result was catastrophic.
We deployed horse cavalry to Europe in World War I. The theory was that we would somehow, with infantry, punch a hole through the German defenses, and in comes the cavalry, and they would go back and swing their sabers and do whatever this cavalry does when it gets in the enemy's rear. And it didn't work that way.
Although primitive, these new machines often became effective replacements for the horse.
The horse could not keep up with the motor vehicle. They would not tire, they would not require food.
But the machines of the First World War had one fatal flaw.
Trucks and tanks started taking over the personnel carrying, the munitions carrying, and now the only thing that the horse could do that all of this other equipment could not do was effectively go cross-country in the mud.
By war's end, no military had solved this dilemma. But military strategists were convinced that a highly mobile vehicle would be instrumental to future victories. After the war, they all set out to invent the world's first mechanical horse. The U.S. military made several attempts to build such a machine in the 1920s and 1930s. One design in particular generated high hopes.